It's a really interesting topic that I think in my current firm we've been going for just over 16 years, and over the piece we've had I think 20 trainees. We're at the moment currently with 3 trainees, but we're looking to recruit 2 more. So for a small firm, we have committed ourselves to trainees over a long period of time. There's never any dearth of trainees, so there's always more trainees than there are jobs out there. The universities put through plenty of people through legal degrees, through diplomas in legal practice. So there's always trainees looking for a job. The difficulty that we find is that we train them incredibly well, and we commit a lot of time to trainees, as you're required to do. We give them a lot of experience on the front hand in terms of dealing with clients and then now appearing in court. And of course, one of the big changes we've had recently is that trainees can appear now after 3 months of experience, whereas before it used to be a year. So we're getting trainees who are effectively appearing in court after 3 months. Now, obviously doing fairly straightforward cases, but as they move on, they start to develop their skills and experiences and can deal with slightly more complex cases. So by the time a trainee has come through our system, as it were, we think they're really well qualified. We are a court-based firm. That's what the work we do, entirely court-based. But as a consequence of that, we do a lot of legal aid work. And as a consequence of doing a lot of legal aid work, we're not charging privately on cases. So one of the big problems that we have is that come the end of a traineeship, where we have trained a trainee incredibly well, that trainee becomes attractive to other firms who, for whatever reasons, haven't trained the trainees in the same way. So we find that we have a huge difficulty in retaining a trainee at the end of that traineeship. Now, we pay the trainees what is the Law Society's effective rate for a trainee, but come at the end of that traineeship, it's difficult to believe the disparity in terms of what a newly qualified lawyer can effectively be paid at a big firm compared to ours. We're committed to doing legal aid, and we have done over all the years we've done it. We will continue to do it. But the problem for that is, of course, that we simply cannot pay what the bigger firms can. So we end up in a situation where there are a lot of young trainee lawyers with us, and then there are the older lawyers, and there's this gap. And the gap is because there are no assistants doing this type of work. And that is actually mirrored across Scotland and across the courts of Scotland. So if you go into what we call an agent's room, where solicitors sit and have a cup of coffee, you'll find some probably older lawyers and some very young lawyers, and very little in between. And that ultimately is where the problem is going to come for the Scottish legal profession, is that people can't be retained to do the work that we're doing. So trainees are hugely important. We invest hugely in them. We will continue to invest in them. But at the moment, there's a real discord between training a trainee and retaining a trainee. And there is a concern about how we're going to deal with this going forward.
Do you have any thoughts on how those issues could be remedied?
Well, I suppose many lawyers would just simply turn around and say, pay legal aid lawyers appropriately. That's not an answer in itself, because of course, people do want a quality of life. People don't want to be working from 6 in the morning until 6 at night. So working conditions is important. So I think it's trying to create a level playing field of some description that allows us to be able to pay trainees properly, but maybe getting some help, whether it be in terms of grant aid or whether it comes from other resources that allows us to offer the kind of job that people want to do with a pay that is commensurate with that.
Yeah, thank you. And you mentioned about Thorley Stephenson being committed to providing legal aid. Could you just possibly tell our viewers why that is the case, that why you choose to do that type of work when it is so challenging in terms of remuneration?
I think it's all about access to justice, and everybody is entitled to have access to justice. It shouldn't just be about those that can afford to pay who get access to a court. So people who for whatever reason, aren't earning, in receipt of benefits, people who can't work, people who have disabilities, or whatever. Everybody has a right to be represented in court. And that right is reflected by how lawyers get paid. If you don't earn, or if you're on a benefit, you need legal aid. But that's what we do. We will represent people across the whole spectrum. We don't pick and choose who we represent. We say, if you have a case or you want to bring a case and you're entitled to legal aid, we will offer you that legal aid so that you can take your case to court. So it's making sure that everybody, whether they're in Lerwick, Linlithgow or Lesmahagow, it means that you've got access to a lawyer. And that's something that we've been committed to and will remain committed to. And it's often the case where people think all of a sudden, I've got no need for a lawyer. And then all of a sudden something happens, whether it be they find themselves in trouble in a driving offence, or whether they've got a difficulty with a relationship, or whether they've got a difficulty in many other ways in buying or selling a house and something's gone wrong. And all of a sudden you need a lawyer. If you can't pay, there's a mechanism for that to be dealt with, but you need lawyers who are prepared to provide that service. And that's, I suppose, where we step in. And that's where, at the end of it all, we will continue to do that, because people are entitled to it, but somebody's got to provide the service.